attack, fast, fatal, hard impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and pass. I back up my actions, fact, don't ask, grab reactions, jacked, attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember, you're discreet now. Get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Minishot here, and now, before I do begin, I have two statements to make about this series. Number one, this series is one a lot of people have done. It is one I've seen some interpretations on. Some are very bad. Some do go over the line. And I am not going to be doing that. This won't be 18 plus. A lot of people might expect it to be, because I did state before I was going to make it college age characters. Now, with that being said, that doesn't mean I'm going to be going over certain lines. And I think a lot of people do know what I'm talking about with my storytelling. And number two, this idea, I've seen it been played with or dealt with before, but I am very curious myself about doing a take on it. So, let me begin. We'll start with Izuku Midoriya. Currently, he's sitting in a room. He has a hoodie on, and he has glasses, along with a mask obscuring his face. And Deku, he does sit there and look across from him. There is a man sitting 10 feet away, and he does have a glass of water along with a notepad and a pen to his left. He just set it down because he wants to know a bit more details about Izuku. The boy he is meeting for the first time in person. The two have had many online sessions before, but the boy has always been hesitant to meet and have a real life session. However, right now, he's been able to get him out. He hasn't been, well, from what he understands, only doing what he needs to for school. And he's very curious about this, as he does ask Izuku what brings him here today. Hi, Doctor. It's just I wanted to get outside more, I guess. That's good. That's very good. Now, Izuku, I do have some notes from our previous sessions, and I don't exactly have them on hand. So I would like to ask you a few questions and take some notes if that is alright with you. I'm very curious to know a bit more about your situation, especially because it's a unique one. Now, the man's left hand is somewhat shaking a little, as he does go to bring up his right hand and go to grab his wrist, putting it flat down as he does maintain this composure. As Deku, he does open his mouth, informing the doctor he supposed that it would all have to start from the day he was born. And his quirk. That must have been where the problems all started from and stem from. Then there's along with the manifestation of his actual abilities. His abilities are strange. In fact, you could kind of consider it to be a mind-affecting quirk, or a mind-altering ability. Doctors, they don't really do enough research about it, since they're kind of either too infatuated with this idea of it, or too scared of it. And the doctor, he is very much intrigued to hear Deku talk about this. He wants the boy to put it into words so he himself can try to draw a conclusion to help him. And he does let Deku continue talking. I see. So, exactly what does your ability do? Well, my quirk, it it affects men and women in different ways. I don't know exactly how or why, and I kind of can't really control it because it's a mutation. I think it might be something to do with my voice, a pheromone I produce. It's just weird. Yes, young man, I understand. And why the mask? Oh, um, well, my quirk seems to have a greater effect if someone sees my face. This kinda prolongs it from ever happening. But at the same time, it's also bad. What do you mean? Well, um, if people see my face for a certain amount of time, one of the effects will start happening to them. Yes, you've mentioned these effects, but exactly what are they? Well, I mean, it would all really depend if I know enough about it correctly on men and women. Or Deku actually going to somewhat sit up a bit straighter, bringing up his hands. The man noticing that Deku, he went from being limp with his wrist to actually bringing his hands up to do some motions. Deku basically bringing his hands out and bringing his thumbs down. As he does look like he's forming, well, this is going to sound silly, lobster claws. Deku telling the doctor that he believes it does have something to do with the X chromosome, Deku bringing out his left hand, and the Y chromosome bringing out his other hand. Talking about how he believes that for women, his quirk might be some sort of, well, possible infatuation thing. He doesn't exactly know. He wouldn't consider it to be, well, what's the right word? An afro something. He wouldn't consider it to be one of those, but it seems to have an effect like it, except to a greater or higher extent. It's much worse. For some reason, his ability isn't exactly just a lust type ability. The symptoms seem to be weird. It's more like he's affecting people's minds or female women's minds to completely worship him. Now, the doctor, he does look at Deku confused a bit. The way he phrased it in writing didn't seem as weird. But now it just kind of disturbs him a bit. He knows that from talking to this boy, or this man really, that he doesn't like his particular quirk. It's one of the reasons why he tries to be a shut in. And one of the reasons why he so desperately just wants to find a way to get rid of it. Now, he does let Deku continue. Deku explains that his ability, it seems to just catch interest. People want to know everything about him. Women just want to know him. They want to somewhat just not be a romantic partner, just they basically want to, he doesn't really understand how to phrase it away. They just want to constantly be around him 24/7. He doesn't know why. He's had instances where he thought he had relationships, but they weren't. He's been stalked, and he's even had his apartment broken into a few times. Even back whenever he still lived with his parents. The two of them, they're the only people he's ever known to be immune to the effects. And he mainly spent time with them. The doctor continued to listen, as Deku does bring out his other hand, informing him that for men, however, this seems to be an opposite effect. While there are some people who are immune to it on both genders, he doesn't believe he's ever met somebody like that. Possibly, well, just his parents and a few other select people. It could be that there are more, and he really does hope there is. He's found some guys who seem to have a resistance to it, and he does talk to them sometimes, but He believes that he's wearing it down, so he doesn't really want to bug them or disturb them. And the doctor, he's still surprised by this. Deku explaining that men, under the effect of his quirk, they seem to get more agitated and build up to rage, to be violent. These guys, they would turn into people who, at the moment they saw his face, or really heard his voice, they probably turned to punch him in the face. And the doctor, yeah. After hearing about the effect on this quirk, he does understand why he himself has started to feel anxious or even agitated. And he realizes that it's quickly starting to affect him. And he does ask Izuku if he does know any ways to counteract it besides mask, gloves, and from what he's remembering correctly, a particularly strong scented shampoo. Deku trying to explain. He doesn't know. And the fact is, he just doesn't really know if he should be a part of society anymore. The man surprised to hear Deku say that. As Deku does express, the safest thing for anybody to not get in trouble because of his quirk, for him to just stay safe from people in the city, and to just really try to live his best life, would probably to be a hermit somewhere. Find a city where he can just be left alone and do what he can. Or why not just go out to the wilderness? Animals aren't affected by his abilities. He could make friends. And the doctor, yeah. He does actually go to pick up his notepad, jotting that down on it that Deku feels that way. As he does try to express to Deku that he should really try to give humanity another chance. Perhaps his abilities, they are affecting him, yes, and they are particularly strange and somewhat dangerous. But he should know. The man going to stand up, as he does walk over to Deku and go to reach out his hand. He does actually watch as Deku, whenever he did reach out his hand, he just jumped backwards. Deku virtually throwing himself over the couch as he does fall backwards and land on the ground. Now, the man, after seeing Deku's reaction, he does go to withdraw his hand, as he does bring it backwards somewhat fast, and Deku, after standing back up, he does look towards the man. The man actually seeing that Deku, his, mask, it is actually hanging on to part of his face, but it is somewhat sliding off. Deku bringing his hands up to cover his face, and he does go to throw his hoodie down, so the man can't see it. As Deku, he does tell the man to please not do that. I see. Well, I'm sorry. I assumed that would prompt you to try. Prompt me to what? Prompt you to take a hand. A symbolism, if you will. Except more in a physical sense. I appreciate it, Doctor. I really do. But please don't do that again. This is why I didn't want to be here. I need to go. Deku quickly turning and running. And the man, he kind of can't blame Deku. Him walking back over and going to write down exactly how he's feeling. As whenever he does write this down and look at it, he does someone going to bring up his hand and go to brush his forehead, trying to think. Okay, this is all bad. These symptoms do line up with what Deku is saying. And it does make him feel not only somewhat happy Deku's feeling that way, but somehow a bit more strange. He understands that this is the effect of a quirk. However, these thoughts, they could just be jealousy. They could just be annoyance. They could be anger at possibly a loved one coming around Deku or being around him. It could be that this is activating the primal responses of a brain, if that were to make sense. It could be that men, they would see Deku as a challenge. Just how, humans back in the old days would see each other that way. back when humanity was still cavemen, if you will. While Deku would be seen as a partner, the men would see him as a challenge for that right. And it does seem that this does link back to the instincts or primal nature of mankind itself. Now, the man, upon coming to such conclusion, he does just go to close his notebook, as he does need to call someone and make sure that he can get some more understandings about the boy's quirk, and possibly help him out in the long run. Now, with that being said, Deku, he does run through the streets, and some people, they do see him and turn their heads. As we do have whenever Deku, he's running through, he actually does slam his leg into something. Deku going to bring down his right hand and going to grab onto his leg. It does actually fall to his left and directly smash into somebody very hard. Deku falling flat on his face as his mask does break off. And Deku, he does go to bring up his hands and throw them onto the ground to go to stand up. The moment Deku does throw down one of his hands, he actually does feel the mask in his hands. And he does feel it cut into it. Deku actually going to bring his hand back as he does going to look around. And some people, they actually are staring his way. Deku looking back down and realizing exactly the mask broke, before just going to bring his hand up, or his left hand up, to grab the top of his hoodie, pulling it down more. And people, they do stare at him. As Deku, whenever he does just sit there for a second, the person, they do get back up. Excuse me, Deku hearing a voice, as he does freeze upon hearing that it's very feminine. Deku turning and hearing this lady. I'm so sorry, that was the person going to reach out their hands. And Deku, he does see it through the hoodie. Deku actually going to somewhat bring his right hand backwards and up, informing them that it's alright to know that was all his fault. Just please don't come near him. But you're bleeding. I'm so sorry. That mask. I caused. It's just. No, please. It's okay. Just. Please leave me alone. I don't want you to be affected by my quirk. Please just go about your day. I'm very sorry. The person's still refusing to leave. As Deku, he actually does finally go to bring his face out a bit, informing that she does need to leave. People are actually starting to look towards Deku, as he does go to turn around and quickly go to run off. As people, they do see Deku's bleeding hand. And this situation just got a little bit worse. Now, somebody does actually go to walk over and go to clean up what Deku dropped. However, when they do reach their hand down to grab a piece of this mask, they do find it covered in blood. And they do stare at it. It's very strange. That guy, he just ran off? That'd be what a pro hero does think. As they do bring up a piece of the glass that actually does have some blood on it. And they're staring at it. It is actually somewhat of a bigger piece. Just the tip of it's got some blood on it, and so does a part of the piece leaning down. However, the hero, they're just staring at it. They don't know why. They've always been sort of afraid of blood, but they're staring at it a bit more. It's very odd. The person just thinking as they do turn their head, who was that guy? Should they go get him for questioning? Should they hold him to make sure he didn't steal anything? Is that why he was wearing a mask and running? Is that why he's bleeding? The person actually going to run off in that direction, going after Deku. This woman wants to know exactly what he was doing that may have caused this. And Deku, yeah. Right now, he's more or less back at home. And after getting into his apartment and cleaning up his wound, he does sit down at the table. Him just pulling off his glasses and tossing them down, before pulling off his hoodie, as he does think that that was all a bad idea. He thought that going out shopping today would be his biggest achievement, instead of ordering stuff online. And while it was good, because the supermarkets were mainly empty today, He doesn't think that showing up to his therapist's office was the best idea. Sure, he got some confidence in it, but going out like that, the crowds, everything, he was freaking out just getting there. And then the man, he just overstepped the boundary. He needs to be less than what? He needs to be more than 4 to 5 feet away from him. That's Deku's line. If anyone is in that area of his personal space, he will freak the fuck out. And the fact that the man not only invaded, but tried to reach out and touch Deku, that almost gave him a panic attack. Since, for a minute, he thought that if he reached out and touched the man's hand, the man would try to stab him. Or, possibly, punch him in the face. It wouldn't be the first time. Now, with that being said, I do believe that that is a good point to leave this what if off of. And for those of you confused, that's a preview as to what type of stuff might be happening in this what if. It won't be, oh, Deku's overjoyed and he's just going to jump into the idea of having all these girls surround him. We're making this story interesting.